जब जीवन में दुख का अंधियारा छाए, मन में सदा श्रद्धा की ज्योत जलाए, विश्वास मन का तुझको पार लगाए, भक्ति भावना श्रद्धा से जो शीश झुकाए, ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई सुख दुख आने जाने धूप और साये, बाबरा ये मनवा तेरा उलझ न जाए, मन में आशा के दीपक बुझने न पाए, सुबह फिर से आएगी, रात संग जाए, ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम। कहते हैं किस्मत जिसको कर्म का फल है, जीवन में कर्मयोग का मार्ग ही अटल है, जो कुछ है हाथ में तेरे, एक यही पल है, अच्छे कर्म किए जाए तो जीवन सफल है, ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम साई ओम। ओ जब कठिनाई छाई तू ही याद आया, भटके राही को तूने रास्ता दिखाया, तूने भक्तों का बेड़ा पार लगाया, तेरी महिमा मेरे साई कान जान पाया,
a breath in through your nose and slowly release out. Relax your stomach, your legs, your feet. Release any tension and relax. Listen to your breath as it comes and goes. Breathe in, breathe out. So hum. So hum. Breathe gently and quietly. In your mind's eye, imagine it is a warm autumn evening. And imagine yourself looking up into the sky and notice how it is changing to nighttime. As the sun slowly sets, it becomes wrapped in a halo of purple, pink, yellow and orange. The stars begin to sparkle as the sky darkens to an indigo blue. Know you are warm and safe. Now imagine in your mind's eye you are strolling along a sandy path and feel the sand under your bare feet. Feel relaxed and leave aside your worries and troubles. All is well. It is a good evening. In your mind's eye, imagine you walk past fields and you soon see small houses with candlelight shining out from their open windows. As you pass the houses, feel the light of the candles surround you and fill you with a warm, loving glow. As you come to the end of this path, there are many marigold, jay and dewy planted in a lovely garden that has just been freshly watered. Water drops gently sitting on their leaves. And near the garden is a neem tree, its branches full of fresh green leaves, and there are a couple of empty pitchers propped against the trunk. Imagine you can smell the smoke from Shirdi Baba's chillum pipe as if he is close by. In your mind's eye, find a space by the neem tree and sit quietly on the floor. Enjoy this moment. Be in the moment. Feel warm and relaxed. Know that He is with you, in you, above you, below you, behind you. Know that He is always all around you, that He is all-encompassing. Enjoy knowing you are at one with Him, feeling His subtle presence with you. When you are ready, in your mind's eye, leave the neem tree and begin your journey back. Past the garden in all its glory and enter the path that takes you past the houses. The candles still shine brightly. Walk past the fields back to your starting point. Notice your breath as it comes and goes, and keep your awareness of the divine within. Become aware of your hands and feet. Gently move your fingers and toes. Slowly become aware of the room around you. When you are ready, slowly and gently open your eyes.
Core values of spirituality are Shraddha, faith, and Saburi, patience. If one is there, the other has to be present. You may not receive fruits immediately today or tomorrow while walking on the path of devotion, but you should not get disappointed. You must take care that your love and trust should not decrease by not getting the desired results early. Your devotion should be strong enough to wait for the right time to get the results. Shraddha is the foundation of the path of devotion, and Saburi is the time taken to walk on that path. Shraddha or devotional faith is the most difficult state of mind to achieve. If you have absolute faith in your Guru, then sooner or later you will even look like the Guru with all their attributes. I've often said that faith and patience are minds of virtues. If my devotees develop these virtues in themselves, they will cross this ocean of worldly existence without the least trouble and do so easily. Steadfast love in God is the gateway to eternity. To have faith in God is to install Sai on the throne of your hearts. Shraddha means to trust in the omnipotence of God and to firmly believe that God answers your prayers. A pious person stands with firm faith in God when everyone else deserts them. Patience is a quality needed through the path to reach the goal. This quality must be ingrained in a seeker from day one and not lose their stride and leave the path halfway. Faith and patience are not some mere words to be spoken. No, you have to put these into practice and make them part of your life. One has to toil and work very hard every second to develop unswerving faith and patience in Malik, the Master. The main aim of Shirdi Sai Baba is to spread the feeling of unity and brotherhood throughout the world. There is only one God who is the master of all human beings. God loves each and every person, irrespective of his or her vices or virtues. Similarly, you should also love each other, irrespective of religion, caste, creed, and so on. You must trust that God is there. If you want to worship the shining sun, then you must have patience to wait until the night is over. If you want to see the bright sky, then you must have patience to wait till the dark clouds disappear. And if you want to enjoy victory, you must have patience to contest in the competition first. First, if you have faith in yourself, then only you can have faith in God. Have faith and patience, then I will be with you always, wherever you are. Sabka Malik Ek.
श्रद्धयाग्निः समिध्यते श्रद्धया विन्दते हविः श्रद्धां भगस्य मूर्धनि वचसा वेदयामसि प्रयग्श्रद्धे ददतः प्रियज्ञ श्रद्धेदिदासतः प्रियं भोजेषु यज्वसु इदम् उदितं कृधि यथा देवा असुरेषु श्रद्धामुग्रेषु चक्रिरे एवं भोजेषु यज्वसु अस्माकमुदितं कृधि श्रद्धां देवा यजमानाः वायुगोपा उपासते श्रद्धागुं हृदयया कूत्या श्रद्धया हूयते हविः श्रद्धां प्रातर्हवामहे श्रद्धां मध्यं दिनं परि श्रद्धागुं सूर्यस्य निमृचि श्रद्धे श्रद्धापयेहमा श्रद्धा देवानधिवस्ते श्रद्धा विश्वमिदं जगत् श्रद्धां कामस्य मातरं हविषा वर्धयामसि ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
अम्बा भवानी शिव शम्भो कुमारा अम्बा भवानी शिव शम्भो
जमाने में कहा टूटी हुई तस्वीर बनती है, तेरे दरबार में बिगड़ी हुई तकदीर बनती है। तारीफ तेरी निकली है दिल से, आई है लब पे बन के कव्वाली। शिरडी वाले साई बाबा आया है तेरे दर पे सवाली।
शिरडी वाले साई बाबा आया है तेरे दर पे सवाली।
लब पे दुआएं, आंखों में आंसू, दिल में उम्मीदें, पर झोली खाली। शिरडी वाले साई बाबा आया है तेरे दर पे सवाली। दर पे सवाली आया है दर पे सवाली। ओ बाबा
शिरडी वाले साई बाबा आया है तेरे दर पे सवाली। ओ हो 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 हो, ओ हो 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 हो, ओ हो 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 हो, ओ हो हो हो।
ओ मेरे साई देवा तेरे सब नाम लेवा।
ओ मेरे साई देवा तेरा सब नाम लेवा।
जुदा इंसान सारे सभी तुझको है प्यारे। सुने फरियाद सबकी तुझे है याद सबकी। बड़ा या कोई छोटा नहीं मायूस लौटा। अमीरों का सहारा गरीबों का गुजारा। तेरी रहमत का किस्सा बयां हम सब करें क्या। दो दिन की दुनिया दुनिया है गुलशन। सब फूल काटे तू सबका माली।
शिरडी वाले साई बाबा आया है तेरे दर पे सवाली।
खुदा की शान तुझ में दिखे भगवान तुझ में।
खुदा की शान तुझ में दिखे भगवान तुझ में।
तुझे सब मानते हैं तेरा घर जानते हैं। चले आते हैं दौड़े जो खुशकिस्मत है थोड़े। ये हर राही की मंजिल ये हर कश्ती का साहिल। जिसे सबने निकाला उसे तूने संभाला।
जिसे सबने निकाला उसे तूने संभाला।
तो बिछड़ों को मिलाए बुझे दीपक जलाए।
तू बिछड़ों को मिलाए मुझे दीपक जलाए। तू बिछड़ों को मिलाए मुझे दीपक जलाए।
ये गम की रातें रातें हैं काली। इनको बना दे ईद और दिवाली। परती वाले साई बाबा आया है तेरे दर पे सवाली। लब पे दुआएं, आंखों में आंसू, दिल में उम्मीदें, पर झोली खाली।
परती वाले साई बाबा आया है तेरे दर पे सवाली। परती वाले साई बाबा आया है तेरे दर पे सवाली। परती वाले
My humble salutations at the lotus feet of our beloved Swami, and my loving day side unto you all. I would like to welcome you to the Region 4's virtual Abhishekam and Shirdi Sai Satcharitra reading Parayan. Parayan means the reading of Holy Scripture from start to end, with the aim of reading 51 chapters of Satcharitra in 7 days. On September 28, 1990, in Swami's discourse, he said that Shirdi Sai Baba was born on the first day of Navratri in 1838. His Mahasamadhi occurred on Vijayadashmi Day in 1980. And Swami has said the two bodies are different, but the divinity is one. The first advent was revealing divinity. The second advent is awaken the divinity in human beings. And the next is for increasing divinity. And again on 15 October 1967, Hospital Dev Shantinidan, he said, though Shirdi body and this body are different, the deity, the person in the body is the same. And so I recognize and reward all who come to either place. Shirdi Baba gave his complete approval to the writing of Satcharitra to Hemant Khan, who has written this holy book which we're going to read today. I fully agree with you regarding the writing of Satcharitra. You do your duty. Don't be afraid in the least. Steady your mind and have faith in others. If my leelas are returned, the avidya will vanish. And if they listen sincerely and attentively, the awareness of the worldly existence will decline. And strong waves of devotion, love will rise up. If anyone dives into my leelas, he would get precious gem of knowledge. Sai Charitra is a unique gift for the mankind. It teaches us not to project on a mind with unrelated details and hurry it with the fume of envy and greed. If complete book is read in a week, it says to fulfill desire of the readers. When the devotee starts Parayan, they should completely surrender the result at the holy feet of Baba. And Baba shall bless each according to his character. There is no requirement for prasad or fruit or something could be offered to Baba's each day. For this Charitra reading, many devotees all over the UK and abroad have given up their time and have volunteered to read the Charitra and each chapter for 7 days. It is their sadhana. The aim is to read each day around 5 to 6 chapters. I would like to request you all to join every evening and follow the reading of the Satcharitra live online by downloading the link on our poster and supporting our readers. I'd like to finish with this Satcharitra. Mukam karoti vachalam vanghum langhayate girim yatripatam ham vande Paramanandam Paraham. The blessings of the Lord Krishna allow one to speak fluently and enables us to cross mountains. I pray that Lord Sai showers His mercy on all readers and enables them to read efficiently. I would like to wish the very best of luck to all my readers and pray that Swami speaks to them. I hope you are all ready to perform the Abhishekam on a chosen deity. We will begin with 108 names of Om Shri Sai Nathaya Namaha, and such a reading will commence straight after the Abhishekam. Jai Sairam.
Om Shri Sai Nathaya Namaha. 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 Sairam. Shirdi Sai Satcharitra, Chapter 1. Salutations, the story of grinding wheat and its philosophical significance. According to the ancient and revered custom, Hemad Pant begins the work Sai Satcharitra with various salutations. First, he makes obeisance to the god Ganesha, who is the son of Lord Shiva, bears the head of an elephant and the body of a human being. When starting anything, he is worshipped by the Hindus. To remove all obstacles and make the work a success, and says that Shirdi Sai is the god Ganesha. Then to the goddess Saraswati, the goddess of learning, to inspire him to write out the work, and says that Shirdi Sai is one with this goddess, and that he is himself singing his own life. Then to the gods Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar, the creating, preserving, and destroying deities respectively, and says that Sainath is one with them, and he, as the great teacher, will carry us across the river of worldly existence. Then to his tutelary deity, Narayan Adinath, who manifested himself in Konkan, the land reclaimed by Parashurama, who is one of the avatars of incarnations of God before Lord Rama, from the sea, and to the Adi, original Purusha or man of the family. Then to the Bharadwaja Muni, into whose Gotra or clan he was born, and also to various rishis, Yagyavalakya, Bhrigu, Parashara, Narad, Vedavyasa, Sanak, Sanandan, Sanat Kumar, Shukha, Shaunak, Vishwamitra, Vashishta, Valmiki, Vamadeva, Jaimini, Vaishampayan, Navayogendra, etc. And also to modern saints such as Nivritti, Jnanadev, Sopan, Muktabai, Janardhan, Ekanath, Namdev, Tukaram, Kanha, Narahari, etc. Then to his grandfather Sadashiv, father Raghunath, his mother who left him in his infancy, to his paternal aunt who brought him up, and to his loving elder brother. Then to the readers, and praise them to give their whole and undivided attention to his work. And lastly, to his Guru Sri Sai Nath, an incarnation of Sri Dattatreya, who is his sole refuge and who will make him realize that Brahman is the reality and the world an illusion, and incidentally to all the beings in whom the Lord God dwells. After describing in brief the various modes of devotion according to Parashara, Vyasa and Shandilya, etc., the author goes on to relate the following story. It was some time after 1910 AD that I went one fine morning to the masjid in Shirdi for getting a darshan of Sai Baba. I was wonderstruck to see the following phenomenon. After washing his mouth and face, Sai Baba began to make preparations for grinding wheat. He spread a sack on the floor and thereon set a hand mill. He took some quantity of wheat in a winnowing fan, and then, drawing up the sleeves of his kafni or robe, and taking hold of the peg of the hand mill, started grinding the wheat by putting a few handfuls of wheat in the upper opening of the mill and rotated it. I thought, what business Baba had with the grinding of wheat when he possessed nothing and stored nothing, and as he lived on alms? Some people who had come there thought likewise, but none had the courage to ask Baba what he was doing. Immediately, this news of Baba's grinding wheat spread into the village, and at once men and women ran to the masjid and flocked there to see Baba's act. 4 bold women from the crowd forced their way up and, pushing Baba aside, took forcibly the peg or handle into their hands, and singing Baba's leelas, started grinding. At first, Baba was enraged, but on seeing the women's love and devotion, he was much pleased and began to smile. While they were grinding, they began to think that Baba had no house, no property, no children, none to look after, and he lived on alms. He did not require any wheat flour for making bread or roti. What will he do with this big quantity of flour? Perhaps as Baba is very kind, he will distribute the flour amongst us. Thinking in this way while singing, they finished the grinding, and after putting the hand mill aside, they divided the flour into 4 portions and began to remove them one per head. Baba, who was calm and quiet up till now, got wild and started abusing them, saying, "Ladies, are you gone mad? Whose father's property are you looting away? Have I borrowed any wheat from you so that you can safely take the flour? Now please do this. Take the flour and throw it on the village border limits." On hearing this, the women felt abashed and, whispering amongst themselves, went away to the outskirts of the village and spread the flour as directed by Baba. I asked the Shirdi people, "What was this that Baba did?" They replied that as the cholera epidemic was spreading in the village, and this was Baba's remedy against the same. It was not wheat that was ground, but the cholera itself was ground to pieces and pushed out of the village. From this time onward, the cholera epidemic subsided and the people of the village were happy. I was much pleased to know all this, but at the same time my curiosity was also aroused. I began to ask myself, what earthly connection was there between wheat flour and cholera? What was the causal relationship between the two? And how to reconcile them? The incident seems to be inexplicable. I should write something on this and sing to my heart's content Baba's sweet leelas. Thinking in this way about this leela, my heart filled with joy, and I was thus inspired to write Baba's life, the Satcharitra. And as we know, with Baba's grace and blessing, this work was successfully accomplished. Philosophical significance of grinding. Apart from the meaning which the people of Shirdi put on this incident of grinding wheat, there is, we think, a philosophical significance too. Sai Baba lived in Shirdi for about 60 years, and during this long period, he did the business of grinding almost every day. Not, however, the wheat alone, but the sins, the mental and physical afflictions, and the miseries of his innumerable devotees. The two stones of his mill consisted of karma and bhakti, the former being the lower and the latter the upper one. The handle with which Baba worked the mill consisted of jnana. It was a firm conviction of Baba that knowledge or self-realization is not possible unless there is the prior act of grinding of all our impulses, desires and sins, and of the three gunas, namely Sattva, Raja and Tama, and the Ahankara, which is so subtle and therefore so difficult to be got rid of. This reminds us of a story of Kabir, who seeing a woman grinding corn said to his guru, Nipatti Ranjana, I am weeping because I feel the agony of being crushed in this wheel of worldly existence like the corn in the handmill. Nipatti Ranjana replied, do not be afraid. Hold fast to the handle of knowledge of this mill, as I do, and do not wander far away from the same, but turn inward into the center, and you are sure to be saved. Bow to Shri Sai. Peace be to all. Chapter 2. The object of writing the work. Incapacity and boldness in the undertaking, hot discussion, conferring significant and prophetic title of Hemat Pant, necessity of a guru. In the last chapter, the author mentioned in the original Marathi book that he would state the reason that led him to undertake the work and the persons qualified to read the same and such other points. Now, in this chapter, he starts to tell the same. Object of writing the work. In the first chapter, I described Sai Baba's miracle of checking and destroying the epidemic of cholera by grinding wheat and throwing the flour on the outskirts of the village. I heard other miracles of Sai Baba, and to my great delight, and this delight burst forth into this poetic work. I also thought that the description of these grand miracles of Sai Baba would be interesting and instructive to his devotees and would remove their sins, and so I began to write the sacred life and teachings of Sai Baba. The life of the saint is neither logical nor dialectical. It shows us the true and great path. Incapacity and boldness in undertaking the work. Hemat Pant thought that he was not a fit person to undertake the work. He said, I do not know the life of my intimate friend, nor do I know my own mind. Then how can I write the life of a saint or describe the nature of incarnations, which even the Vedas were unable to do? One must be a saint himself before he could know other saints. Then how can I describe their glory? To write the life of a saint is the most difficult, though one may as well measure the depth of the water of the seven seas, or enclose the sky with cloth trappings. I knew that this was the most venturous undertaking, which might expose me to ridicule. I therefore invoked Sai Baba's grace. The premier poet saint of Maharashtra, Sri Gyaneshwar Maharaj, has stated that the Lord loves those who write the lives of saints, and the saints also have a peculiar method of their own of getting the service, which the devotees long for successfully accomplished. The saints inspire the work, the devotee becomes only an indirect cause or instrument to achieve the end. For instance, in 1700 Shaka year, the poet Mahipati aspired to write the lives of saints. Saints inspired him and got the work done. So also in 1800 Shaka year, Dasaganu's service was accepted. The former wrote 4 works, Bhakta Vijaya, Shanta Vijaya, Bhakta Leelamrit and Shanta Katamrit, while the latter wrote 2, Bhakta Leelamrit and Shanta Katamrit, in which the lives of modern saints were described. In chapters 31, 32, 33 of Bhakta Leelamrit and in chapter 57 of Santa Katamrit, the sweet life and teachings of Sai Baba are very well depicted. These have been separately published in Sai Leela magazine, numbers 11 and 12, volume 17. The readers are advised to read these chapters. So also Sai Baba's wonderful leelas are described in a small, decent book named Shri Sainath Bhajanmala by Mrs. Savitri by Raghunath Tendulkar of Bandra. Dasaganu Maharaj, who also composed various sweet poems on Sai Baba. A devotee named Amidas Bhavani Mehta has also published some stories of Sai Baba in Gujarati. Some numbers of Sainath Prabha, a magazine published by Dakshina Bhiksha Sanstha of Shirdi, are also published. Then the question of objection comes in that while so many works regarding Sai Baba are extant, why should this Satcharitra be written, and where is its necessity? The answer is plain and simple. The life of Sai Baba is as wide and deep as the infinite ocean, and all can dive deep into the same and take out precious gems of knowledge and bhakti and distribute them to the aspiring public. The stories, parables, and teachings of Sai Baba are very wonderful. They will give peace and happiness to the people who are afflicted with sorrows and heavily loaded with miseries of this worldly existence, and also bestow knowledge and wisdom both in the worldly and in spiritual domains. If these teachings of Sai Baba, which are as interesting and instructive as the Vedic lore, are listened to and meditated upon, the devotees will get what they long for, and that is union with Brahman, mastery in eightfold yoga, bliss of meditation, etc. So I thought that I should call these stories together. That would be my best upasana. This collection would be most delightful to those simple souls whose eyes were not blessed with Sai Baba's darshan. So I set about collecting Sai Baba's teachings and expressions, the outcome of his boundless and natural self-realization. It was Sai Baba who inspired me in this matter. In fact, I surrendered my ego at his feet and thought that my path was clear and that he would make me quite happy here and in the next world. I could not myself ask Sai Baba to give me permission for this work, so I requested Mr. Madhav Rao Deshpande alias Shama, Baba's most intimate devotee, to speak to him for me. He pleaded for my cause and said to Sai Baba, "This Anna Sahib wants to write your biography. Don't say you are a poor begging fakir and there is no necessity to write it. But if you agree and help him, he will write, or rather, your feet or your grace will accomplish the work. Without your consent and blessing, nothing can be done successfully." When Sai Baba heard this request, he was moved and blessed me by giving his udi or sacred ashes and placing his boon bestowing hand on my head and said, "Let him make a collection of stories and experiences, keep notes and memos. I will help him. He is only an outward instrument. I should write myself my autobiography and satisfy the wishes of my devotees. He should get rid of his ego, place or surrender it at my feet. He who acts like this in life, him I help the most. What of my life stories? I serve him in his house in all possible ways. When his ego is completely annihilated and there is left no trace of it, I myself shall enter into him and shall myself write my own life." Hearing my stories and teachings will create faith in devotees' hearts, and they will easily get self-realization and bliss. Let there be no insistence on establishing one's own view, no attempt to refute others' opinions, no discussions of pros and cons of any subject. The word discussion put me in mind of my promise to explain the story of my getting the title of Himatpan, and now I begin to relate the same. I was on close friendly terms with Kaka Sahib Dikshit and Nana Sahib Chandorkar. They pressed me to go to Shirdi and have Baba's darshan, and I promised them to do so. But something in the interval turned up which prevented me from going to Shirdi. The son of a friend of mine at Lonavala fell ill. My friend tried all possible means, physical and spiritual, but the fever would not abate. At length, he got his guru to sit by the bedside of his son, but this too was of no avail. Hearing this, I thought, what is the utility of the guru if he could not save my friend's son? If the guru can't do anything for us, why should I go to Shirdi at all? Thinking in this way, I postponed my Shirdi trip. But the inevitable must happen, and it happened in my case as follows. Mr. Nana Sahib Chandorkar, who was a Prant officer, was going on tour to Bassein. From Thane, he came to Dadar and was waiting for a train bound for Bassein. In the meanwhile, a Bandra local turned up. He sat in it and came to Bandra and sent for me and took me to task for putting off my Shirdi trip. Nana's argument for my Shirdi trip was convincing and delightful, and so I decided to start for Shirdi the same night. I packed up my luggage and started for Shirdi. I planned to go to Dadar and there to catch the train for Manmad. So I booked myself to Dadar and sat in the train. When the train was to start, a Mohammedan came hastily to my compartment and, seeing all my paraphernalia, asked me where I was bound to. I told him of my plan. He then suggested that I should go straight to Bori Bandar and not get down at Dadar, for the Manmad mail did not get down at Dadar at all. If this little miracle or leela had not happened, I would not have reached Shirdi the next day as settled, and many doubts would have assailed me. But that was not to be. As fortune favored me, I reached Shirdi the next day before 9 or 10 a.m. Mr. Bhau Sahib, Kaka Dikshit, was waiting for me there. This was in 1910 AD when there was only one place, and that is Sathya's Vada for lodging pilgrims' devotees. After alighting from the Tonga, I was anxious to have darshan when the great devotee Sathya Sahib Nulkar returned from the masjid and said that Sai Baba was at the corner of the Vada and that I should first get the preliminary darshan and then after bath see him at leisure. Hearing this, I ran and prostrated before Baba, and then my joy knew no bounds. I found more than what Nana Chandorkar had told me. All my senses were satisfied, and I forgot thirst and hunger. The moment I touched Sai Baba's feet, I began a new lease of life. I felt myself much obliged to those who spurred and helped me to get the darshan, and I considered them as my real relatives, and I cannot repay their debt. I only remember them and prostrate mentally before them. The peculiarity of Sai Baba's darshan as I found it is that by his darshan our thoughts are changed. The force of previous actions is abated and gradually non-attachment of dispassion towards worldly objects grows up. It is by the merit of actions in many past births that such darshan is got. And if only you see Sai Baba, really, all the world becomes or assumes the form of Sai Baba. Hot discussion. On the first day of my arrival in Shirdi, there was a discussion between me and Bala Sahib Bhatte regarding the necessity of a guru. I contended, why should we lose our freedom and submit to others? When we have to do our duty, why a guru is necessary? One must try their best and save himself. What can the guru do to a man who does nothing but sleeps indolently? Thus I pleaded free will. And while Mr. Bhatte took up the other side, that is destiny, and said, whatever is bound to happen must happen. Even great men have failed. Man proposes one way, but God disposes the other contrary way. Brush aside your cleverness, pride, or egoism won't help you. This discussion, with all its pros and cons, went on for an hour or so, and as usual, no decision was arrived at. We had to stop the discussion ultimately as we were exhausted. The net result of this was that I lost my peace of mind and found that unless there is strong body consciousness and egoism, there would be no discussion. In other words, it is egoism which breeds discussion. Then, when we went to the masjid with others, Baba asked Kaka Sahib Dikshit the following: what was going on in the Sathya's Vada? What was the discussion about? And staring at me, Baba further added, what did this Himmat Pant say? Hearing those words, I was much surprised. The masjid was at a considerable distance from Sathya's Vada where I was staying and where the discussion was going on. How could Baba know our discussion unless he be omniscient and inner ruler of us all? Significant and prophetic title. I began to think why Sai Baba should call me by the name Himmat Pant. This word is a corrupt form of Himadri Pant. This Himadri Pant was a well-known minister of the kings Mahadev and Ramadev of Devagiri of the Yadav dynasty. He was very learned, good-natured, and author of good works such as Chatur Varga Chintamani, or dealing with spiritual subjects, and Raja Prashasti. He invented and started new methods of accounts and was the originator of the Modi or Marathi shorthand script. But I was quite the opposite, an ignoramus and of dull, mediocre intellect. So I could not understand why the name or title was conferred upon me. But thinking seriously upon it, I thought that the title was a dart to destroy my ego, so that I should always remain meek and humble. It was also a compliment paid to me for the cleverness in this discussion. Looking to the future history, we think that Baba's word, or calling Mr. Dabolkar by the name Himmat Pant, was significant and prophetic, as we find that he looked after the management of Sai Sansthan very intelligently, kept nicely all the accounts, and was also the author of such a good work, Sai Satcharitra, which deals with such important and spiritual subjects as jnana, bhakti and dispassion, self-surrender and self-realization. About the necessity of a guru. Himmat Pant has left no note, no memo about what Baba said regarding this subject, but Kaka Sahib Dikshit has published his notes regarding this matter. Next day, after Himmat Pant's meeting with Sai Baba, Kaka Sahib went to Baba and asked whether he should leave Shirdi. Baba said, yes. Then someone asked, Baba, where to go? And Baba said, high up. Then the man said, how is the way? Baba said, there are many ways leading there. There is one way also from here, Shirdi. The way is difficult. There are tigers and wolves in the jungles on the way. I, that is Kaka Sahib, asked, but Baba, what if we take a guide with us? Baba answered, then there is no difficulty. The guide will take you straight to your destination, avoiding wolves, tigers, and ditches, etc. on the way. If there be no guide, there is the danger of your being lost in the jungles or falling into ditches. Mr. Dabolkar was present on this occasion, and he thought that this was the answer Baba gave to the question whether Guru was a necessity in Sai Leela Volume 1, Number 5, page 47. And he thereupon took the hint that no discussion of the problem, whether man is free or bound, is of any use in spiritual matters, but that, on the contrary, real Paramartma is possible only as a result of the teachings of the Guru, as is illustrated in this chapter of the original work in the instances of great avatars like Rama and Krishna, who had to submit themselves to their Gurus, Vashishta and Sandipani respectively, for getting self-realization, and that the only virtues necessary for such progress are faith and patience, as in Satcharitra chapter 2, 191-92. Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
Chapter 3 Sai Baba Sanction and Promise. Assignment of work to devotees. Baba's story is a beacon light. His motherly love. Rohila's story. His sweet and nectar-like words. Sai Baba Sanction and Promise. As described in the previous chapter, Sai Baba gave his complete assent to the writing of the Satcharitra and said, I fully agree with you regarding the writing of Satcharitra. You do your duty. Don't be afraid in the least. Steady your mind and have faith in my words. If my leelas are written, the avidya, nescience, will vanish, and if they are attentively and devoutly listened to, the consciousness of the worldly existence will abate, and strong waves of devotion and love will rise up. And if one dives deep into my leelas, he would get precious jewels of knowledge. Hearing this, the author was much pleased, and he at once became fearless and confident, and thought that work was bound to be. Then turning to Shama, Baba said, If a man utters my name with love, I shall fulfill all his wishes, increase his devotion, and if he sings earnestly, my life and my deeds, him I shall beset in front and back and on all sides. Those devotees who are attached to me, heart and soul, will naturally feel happiness when they hear these stories. Believe me that if anybody sings my leelas, I will give him infinite joy and everlasting contentment. It is my special characteristic to free any person who surrenders completely to me and who does worship me faithfully and who remembers me and who meditates on me constantly. How can they be conscious of worldly objects and sensations, who utter my name, who worship me, who think of my stories and my life, and who thus always remember me? I shall draw out my devotees from the jaws of death. If my stories are listened to, all the diseases will be got rid of. So hear my stories with respect, and think and meditate on them, assimilate them. This is the way of happiness and contentment. The pride and egoism of my devotees will vanish. The mind of the hearers will be set at rest, and if it has wholehearted and complete faith, it will be one with supreme consciousness. The simple remembrance of my name as Sai Sai will do away with sins of speech and hearing. Different works assigned to devotees. The Lord trusts different works to different devotees. Some are given the work of building temples and mats or ghats on rivers. Some are made to sing the glories of God, and some are sent on pilgrimages. But to me was allotted the work of writing the Satcharitra. Being a jack of all trades but a master of none, I was quite unqualified for this job. Then why should I undertake such a difficult job? Who can describe the true life of Sai Baba? Sai Baba's grace alone can enable one to accomplish this difficult work. So when I took up the pen in my hand, Sai Baba took away my egoism and wrote himself his stories. The credit of relaying these stories therefore goes to him and not to me. Though Brahmin by birth, I lacked the two eyes, i.e. the sight or vision of Shirdi and Smriti, therefore was not at all capable of writing the Satcharitra, but the grace of the Lord makes a dumb man talk, enables a lame man to cross a mountain. He alone knows the knack of getting things done as he likes. Neither the flute nor the harmonium knows how sounds are produced. This is the concern of the player. The oozing of the Chandrakant jewel and the surging of the sea are not due to the jewel and the sea, but to the rise of the moon. Baba's stories as beacon light. Lighthouses are constructed at various places in the sea to enable the boatmen to avoid rocks and dangers and make them sail safely. Sai Baba's stories serve a similar purpose in the ocean of worldly existence. They surpass nectar in sweetness and make our worldly path smooth and easy to traverse. Blessed are the stories of the saints when they enter our hearts through the ears, the body, consciousness or egoism, and the sense of duality vanish, and when they are stored in the heart, doubts fly out to all sides. pride of the body will fall, and wisdom will be stored in abundance. The description of Baba's pure fame and the hearing of the same with love will destroy the sins of the devotee, and therefore this is the simple sadhana for attaining salvation. The sadhana for Krita age was shamatha, for Treta age sacrifice, for Dwapara worship, for Kali present age it is singing of the name and glory of the Lord. This last sadhana is open to all the people of the four varnas, Brahmins, etc. The other sadhanas is yoga, yagya, sacrifice, danya, meditation, and dharana, concentration, are very difficult to practice, but singing and hearing the stories and glory of the Lord Sai Baba is very easy. We only have to turn our attention towards them. The listening and singing of the stories will remove the attachment to the senses and their objects, and will make the devotees dispassionate, and will ultimately lead them to self-realization. With this end in view, Sai Baba made me, or helped me to write his stories, Satcharitra. The devotee may now easily read and hear these stories of Sai Baba, and while doing so, meditate on him, his form, and thus attain devotion to Guru and God Sai Baba. Get detachment and self-realization. In the preparation and writing of this work, Satcharitra, it is Sai Baba's grace which has accomplished everything, making use of me as a mere instrument. Motherly love of Sai. Everybody knows how a cow loves her infant calf. Her udder is always full, and when the calf wants milk and dashes at the udder, out comes the milk in unceasing flow. Similarly, a human mother knows the wants of her child and feeds it at her breast in time. In case of dressing and adorning the child, the mother takes particular care to see this is well done. The child knows or cares nothing about this, but the mother's joy knows no bounds when she sees her child beautifully dressed and adorned. The love of mother is peculiar, extraordinary, and disinterested, and has no parallel. Sadgurus feel this motherly love towards their disciples. Sai Baba had the same love towards me, and I give an instance of it below. In 1916 AD, I retired from government service. The pension that was settled in my case was not sufficient to maintain my family decently. On Guru Purnima, 15th of Ashtada, day of that year, I went to Shirdi with other devotees. There, Mr. Anajinjaneka, of his own accord, prayed to Baba for me as follows. Please look kindly on him. The pension he gets is quite insufficient. His family is growing. Give him some other appointment, remove his anxiety and make him happy. Baba replied, he will get some other job, but now he should serve me and be happy. His dishes will be ever full and never empty. He should turn all his attention towards me and avoid the company of atheists, irreligious and wicked people. He should be meek and humble towards all and worship me heart and soul. If he does this, he will get eternal happiness. The question, who is he, whose worship is advocated, is already answered in a note on who is Sai Baba in the prologue at the beginning of this work. Rohila's story. The story of the Rohila illustrates Sai Baba's all-embracing love. One Rohila, tall and well-built, strong as a bull, came to Shirdi wearing a long gafni and was enamoured of Sai, who stayed there. Day and night he used to recite in a loud and harsh tone Gomar, verses from Holy Quran, and shout Allahu Akbar, God is great. Most people of Shirdi were working in their fields by day, and when they returned to their homes at night, they were welcomed with the Rohila's harsh cries and shouts. They could get no sleep and felt much trouble and inconvenience. They suffered in silence this nuisance for some days, and when they could stand it no longer, they approached Baba and requested him to check the Rohila and stop the nonsense. Baba did not attend to their complaint. On the contrary, Baba took the villagers to task and asked them to mind their own business, and not the Rohila. He said to them that the Rohila had got a very bad wife, a Zantipiti, who tried to come in and trouble the Rohila and himself. But hearing the Rohila's prayers, she dare not enter, and they were at peace and happy. In fact, the Rohila had no wife, and by his wife, Baba meant Durbuddhi, i.e. bad thoughts. As Baba liked prayers and cries to God better than anything else, he took the side of the Rohila and asked the villagers to wait and suffer the nuisance, which would abate in due course. Baba's sweet and nectar-like words. One day at noon, after the Aarti, devotees were returning to their lodgings when Baba gave the following beautiful advice. Be wherever you like, do whatever you choose. Remember this well, that all what you do is known to me. I am the inner ruler of all and seated in their hearts. I envelope all the creatures, the movable and immovable world. I am the controller, the wire puller of the show of this universe. I am the mother, origin of all beings, the harmony of three gunas, the propeller of all senses, the creator, preserver, and destroyer. Nothing will harm him who turns his attention towards me, but Maya will lash or whip him who forgets me. All the insects, ants, the visible, movable, and immovable world is my body or form. Hearing these beautiful and precious words, I at once decided in my mind to serve no man henceforward, but my Guru only. But the reply of Baba to Anna Jinjinaka's query, which was really mine, that I would get some job, began to revolve in my mind, and I began to think whether it would come to happen. As future events showed, Baba's words came true, and I got a government job, but that was of short duration. Then I became free and solely devoted myself to the service of my Guru, Sai Baba. Before concluding this chapter, I request the readers to leave out the various hindrances, viz. Indolence, sleep, wandering of mind, attachment to senses, etc., and turn their whole and undivided attention to these stories of Sai Baba. Let their love be natural. Let them know the secret devotion. Let them not exhaust themselves by other sadhanas. Let them stick to this one simple remedy, i.e. listening to Sai Baba's stories. This will destroy their ignorance and will secure for them salvation. A miser may stay at various places, but he always thinks of his buried treasure. So let Sai Baba be enthroned in the hearts of all. In the next chapter, I shall speak of Sai Baba's advent in Shirdi. Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
तब सेवा की अवसर दी जो सत्य साई महादेव गानामृत में भाव भी दे जो प्रेम साई भगवान प्रेम साई भगवान शिरडी साई परती साई हमको दीजो प्रेमामृत धारा प्रेमामृत धारा शिरडी साई परती साई हमको दीजो प्रेमामृत धारा प्रेमामृत धारा तब सेवा की अवसर दीजो सत्य साई महादेव अवसर दीजो सत्य साई महादेव गानामृत में भाव भी दीजो प्रेम साई भगवान प्रेम साई भगवान गानामृत में भाव भी दीजो प्रेम साई भगवान परती साई हमको दीजो प्रेमामृत धारा, प्रेमामृत धारा।
Baba's first advent in Shirdi, mission of the saints, Shirdi the Holy Tirth, personality of Sai Baba, victim of Holy Bua, appearance of Vittal, Shir Sagar's story, Das Ganu's bath in Prayag, immaculate conception of Sai Baba and his first advent in Shirdi, 3 Vadas. In the last chapter, I described the circumstances which led me to write Sai Satcharitra. Let me now describe the first advent of Sai Baba in Shirdi. Mission of the saints. Lord Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 4, verses 7-8, that wherever there is a decay of dharma and ascendancy of unrighteousness, I manifest myself, and for the protection of the virtuous, the destruction of the vicious, and the establishment of righteousness, I manifest myself in age after age. This is the mission of the Lord, and the sages and the saints who are his representatives who appear here at proper time help in their own way to fulfill that mission. For instance, when the twice born, i.e. the Brahmins, the Kshatriyas, the Vaishyas, neglect their duty, and when Sudras try to usurp the rights of the higher classes, when spiritual preceptors are not respected but humiliated, when nobody cares for religious instructions, when everybody thinks himself very learned, when people begin to partake of forbidden foods and intoxicating drinks, when under the cloak of religion people indulge in malpractice, when people belonging to different sects fight amongst themselves, when Brahmins fail to do Sathya adoration and the orthodox their religious practice, when yogis neglect their meditation, when people begin to think that wealth, progeny, wife are the sole concern and thus turn away from the true path of salvation, then do saints appear and try to set matters right by their words and action. They serve as beacon lights and show us the right path and the right way for us to follow. In this way, many saints like Nivritti, Gnandev, Muktabai, Namdev, Bora, Goyani, Eknath, Tukaram, Narahari, Narsibai, Sajan Kasai, Savata, Ramdas, and various others did at various times to show the right path to the people, and so presently came Shri Sai Baba of Shirdi. Shirdi, the Holy Tirth. The bank of the Godavari River in the Ahmednagar district are very fortunate, for they give birth and refuge to many saints, prominent amongst them being Gnaneshwar. Shirdi also falls in the Kopargaon Taluka of Ahmednagar district. After crossing the Godavari river at Kopargaon, one gets the way to Shirdi. When you go 3 courses, which is 9 miles, you come to Nimgaon, from whence Shirdi is visible. Shirdi is as famous and well known as other places like Gangapur, Narsivadi, Adambar on the banks of Krishna river. As the devotees, Damaji flourished in and blessed Mangalwade near Pandharpur, as Samarthas Ramdas as Sajan as Sri Narasimha Saraswati at Saraswati Wadi, so Sainas flourished at Shirdi and blessed it. Personality of Sai Baba. It is on an account of Sai Baba that Shirdi grew into importance. Let us see what sort of personage Sai Baba was. He conquered his samsara, which is worldly existence, which is very difficult and hard to cross. Peace and mental calm was his ornament, and he was the repository of wisdom. He was the home of Vaishnava devotees, more liberal like Karan amongst liberals, and quintessence of all essences. He had no love for perishable things and was always engrossed in self-realization, which was his sole concern. He felt no pleasure in the things of this world or of the world beyond. His antakaran, which is heart, was as clear as a mirror, and his speech always rained nectar. The rich or poor people were the same to him. He did not know or care for honor or dishonor. He was the Lord of all beings. He spoke freely and mixed well with all people, saw the actings of the dances of the Nautch girls, and heard cajole songs. Still, he swerved not an inch from the samadhi, which is mental equilibrium. The name of Allah was always on his lips. While the world awoke, he slept, and while the world slept, he was vigilant. His abdomen was as calm as the deep sea. His ashram could not be determined, nor his actions could be definitely determined. And though he sat in one place, he knew all the transactions of the world. His darbar was imposing. He told daily hundreds of stories. Still, he swerved not an inch from his vow of silence. He always leaned against a wall in the masjid or walked morning, noon, and evening towards Lendi and Chaviti. Still, he at all times abided in himself. Though a siddha, he acted like a sadhak. He was meek, humble, and egoless, and pleased all. Such was Sai Baba, and as the soil of Shirdi was trodden by Sai Baba's feet, it attained extraordinary importance. As Gnaneshwar elevated Landi, Eknath did to Paitan, so Sai Baba raised Shirdi. Blessed are the grass leaves and stones of Shirdi, for they could easily kiss the holy feet of Sai Baba and take their dust on their head. Shirdi became to us devotees another Pandharpur, Jagannath, Dwarka, Banaras, which is Kashi, and Ramesh.
Trimbakeshwar. Trimbakeshwar, Ujjain, and Mahakaleshwar. Mahabaleshwar, Gokulam. Contact of the Sai Baba in Shirdi was like Ayurveda in Tantra. It quietened our samsara, world consciousness, and rendered self-realization easy. Darshan of Shirdi Sai was our yoga sadhana, and talk with him removed our sins. Shampooing his legs was our path in Triveni Prayag, and drinking of holy water of his he destroyed our desires. To us, his commands were Vedas, and accepting eating his udi, sacred ashes, was prasad, was all purifying. He was our Sai Krishna and Sri Rama, who gave us solace, and he was our Par Brahma, actual reality. He was himself beyond him, pair of opposite. Never dejected, never elated, he was always engrossed in his self-existence, knowledge and bliss. Shirdi was his center, but his field of action extended far wide to Punjab, Calcutta, North India, Gujarat, Dhaka, now in Bangladesh and Konkan. Thus the fame of Sai Baba appeared far and wide, and people from all parts came to take his darshan and be blessed. By mere darshan, mind of people, whether pure or impure, would become at once quiet. They got here the same sort of unparallelable joy the devotees get at the Pandapur by saying Vittal Rukmani. This is not an exaggeration. Consider what a devotee says in his respect. Victim of Golibua, an old devotee by name Golibua, aged about 95 years, was Varkari of Pandari. He stayed 8 months of Pandapur and 4 months Ashda to Kartik, July to November. On the banks of Ganga, he had an ass with him for carrying his luggage and disciple of his companion. Every year he made his body or trip to Pandapur and came to Shirdi to see Sai Baba, whom he loved most. He used to stare at Baba and say, "This is Pundarinath, Vittal incarnate, the merciful Lord of the poor and helpless." This Golibua was an old devotee of Vithoba and had made many trips to Pandari, and he testified that Sai Baba was real Pundarinath. Vittal himself appeared. Sai Baba was very fond of remembering and singing God's name. He always uttered Allah Malik, God is love, and in his presence made others sing God's name continuously, day and night for 7 days. This is called Nam Sathya. Once he asked Das Guru Maharaj to do the Nam Sathya, he replied that he would do it, provided he was assured that Vittal would appear at the end of the 7th day. Then Baba placed his hand on his breast, assured him that certainly Vittal would appear, but that the devotee must earnest and devote. The Dankapuri Thakur of Dharkan, Thapurnath and Pandari of Vittal and Dwarka offering Chod Krishna is here, Shirdi. One need not go out to see Dwarka. Will Vittal come here from some outside place? He is here. Only when the devotee is bursting with love and devotion, Vittal will manifest himself here in Shirdi. After the Sathya was over, Vittal did manifest himself in the following manner. Kakasad Dikshit was, as usual, sitting in meditation after the bath. He saw Vittal in vision. When he went at noon of Baba's darshan, Baba asked him point blank, "Did Vittal Patil come? Did you see him? He is a very strong fellow. Catch him firmly, otherwise he will escape. If you have little attentive, this happened in the morning and at noon. There was another Vittal darshan. One hawker from outside came there to sell him 25 or 30 pictures of Vithoba. This picture exactly tallied with the figure that appeared in Kakasad vision. On seeing this and remembering Baba's words, Kakasad Dikshit was much surprised and delighted. He bought one picture of Vithoba and placed in his shrine for worship. Bhagwatarao Keshwaraga story, Shirdi Sai story. How fond Baba for Vittal worship was illustrated in Bhagwatarao Shirdi Sai's story. The father of Bhagwatarao was a devotee of Vithoba and used to make various trips to Pandharpura. He also had an image of Vithoba at home, which he worshipped. After his death, the son stopped everything, the Vari, the worship, the Shraddha, ceremony, etc. When Bhagwatarao came to Shirdi, Baba was, on remembering his father, at once said, "His father was my friend, so I dragged his son here. He never offered Naivedya or offering of food, so he starved Vittal and me. So I brought him here. I shall remonstrate him now and set him to worship." Thus Ganu's bath in Prayag. The Hindu think that the bath in a holy teeth of Prayag, where the Ganga and Yamuna met, is very mysterious, and thousands of pilgrims go there at periodical times to have the sacred bath there. Once the Das Gunu thought that he should go to Prayag for a bath and came to Baba to get his permission for doing so. Baba replied him, "Is it not necessary to go so long? Our Prayag is here, believe me." Then wonder of wonders, When Das Guru placed his head of Baba's feet, out came a flowed streams of Ganga, Yamuna water, from both the toes of Baba. Seeing this miracle, Das Guru was overwhelmed with feeling of love and adoration, and was full of tears. Inwardly, he felt inspired, and his speech burst forth into a song in praise of Baba and his leelas. Immaculate conception of Saint Baba and his first advent in Shirdi. Nobody knew the parents' birthplace of Sai Baba. Many inquiries were made, many questions were put to Baba, others regarding these items, but no satisfactory answer or information was yet obtained. Practically, we know nothing about these matters. Namdev and Kabir were not born like ordinary mortals. They were found as infants in mother of pearls. Namdev being found on the bank Birmavati river by Gangoy, and Kabir on the bank of Brahmakriti river by Kamal. Similar was the case with Baba. He first manifested himself as a young lad of 16 under a neem tree in Shirdi. For the sake of bhaktas, even then he seemed to be full of knowledge of Brahman. He had no desire of worldly objects. Even in dream, he kicked out Maya, Mukti, deliverance, was serving at his feet. One old woman of Shirdi, the mother of Nana Chopda, described him thus: this young lad, fair, smart, and very handsome, was first seen under the neem tree, seated in the asan. The people of the village were wonderstruck to see such a young lad practicing abstinence, not minding heat and cold. By day he was associated with none, by night he was afraid of nobody. People were wondering and asking whence this young chap had turned up. His form and features were so beautiful that the mere look endowed him to awe. He went to nobody's door, always sat near the neem tree. Outwardly he looked very young, but by his action he was really a great soul. He was the embodiment of dispassion and was an enigma to all. One day it was happened that God Khandoba possessed by body of some devotee, and people began to ask him, Deva, you please inquire what blessed fathers is this lad and whence did he come? God Khandoba asked them to bring a pickaxe and dig in a particular place. When it was dug, bricks were found underneath a flat stone. When the stone was removed, a corridor led to a cellar where cow-mouth-shaped structure, wooden bowls, necklaces were seen. Khandoba said, this lad practiced penance here for 12 years. Then the people began to question the lad about this. He put them off the scent by telling them that it was his guru's place, his holy weapon, and requested them to guard it all well. The people then closed the corridor as before. The Aswastha and Ambudar trees were held sacred. Baba regarded this neem tree equally sacred and loved it most. Mahalsapati and other Shirdi devotees regard this site as the resting place, Samadhi stand of Baba's Guru and prostrate before it. 3 Vadas. The site with the neem tree and the surrounding space was bought by Mr. Hari Vinayak Sathe, and on this site a big building styled Sathya's Vada was erected. This Vada was the sole resting place for pilgrims who flocked there. A platform was built around the neem tree and long suite of steps were constructed. Under the step there is a niche facing south and devotees sit on the part of platform facing north. It is believed that the he who burned incense there on the Thursday and Friday evening will, by God's grace, be happy. This Vada was old and dilapidated and wanted repairs. The Sansthan has made necessary repairs, additions, and alterations now. Then, after some years, another Vada, Dixit Vada, was constructed. Kaka Sahib Dixit, solicitor of Bombay, had gone to England. He had injured his leg by an accident there. The injury could not be got rid of by any means. Nana Sahib Chandorkar advised him to try Sai Baba. So he saw Sai Baba in 1909 AD and requested him to cure rather the lameness of his mind than that of his leg. He was so pleased that darshan of Sai Baba that he decided to reside in Shirdi. So he built a vada for himself and other devotees. The foundation of his building was laid in on 1910. On this day, two other important events took place. Mr. Dada Saheb Khavde was given permission to return home, and the night aarti in Chowri was commenced. The Vada was complete and was inhabited on the Ramnami day in 1911 AD with due rites and formalities. Then another Vada or palatial mansion was put up by the famous millionaire Mr. Bhutti of Nagpur. Lots of money was spent on this building, but the entire amount was valueless. As Sai Baba's body is resting in this Vada, it is now called as a Samadhi Mandir. The site of this mandir had formerly a garden, which was watered and looked after by Baba. Three vadas thus sprung up where there was none formerly of these. Sathya's vada was most useful to all in the early days. The story of the garden attended to by Sai Baba with the help of woman Sathya. The temporary absence of Sai Baba from Shirdi and his coming again to Shirdi with the marriage party of Chand Patel and the company of Devidas, Jankidas and Gangaji. Baba's wrestling match with Mohaddin Tamboli residents in Masjid, love of Mr. Dangle and other devotees, and other incidents will be described in the next chapter. Bhatu Sri Sai, peace to be all.
Chapter 5. Baba's return with Chand Patel's marriage party, welcomed and addressed as Sai, contact with other saints, his dress and daily routine, the story of the Padakas, wrestling bout with Mohdin and change in life, turning water into oil, the pseudo-guru Jawhar Ali. Return with Chand Patel's marriage party. As hinted in the last chapter, I shall now describe first how Sai Baba returned to Shirdi after his disappearance. They lived in the Aurangabad district, Nizam state, in a village called Dhup, a well-to-do Mohammedan gentleman by the name Chand Patel. While he was making a trip to Aurangabad, he lost his mare. For 2 long months, he made a diligent search but could not get no trace of the lost mare. After being disappointed, he returned from Aurangabad with the saddle on his back. After traveling 4 kos and a half, he came on the way to a mango tree under the foot of which sat a Ratna, queer fellow. He had a cap on his head, wore kafni, a long robe, and had a satka, which is a short stick, under his armpit, and he was preparing to smoke a chilim, in the pipe. On seeing Chand Patel pass by the way, he called out to him and asked him to have a smoke and to rest a little. The fakir asked him about the saddle. Chand Patel replied that it was off his mare, which was lost. The queer fellow or fakir asked him to make a search in the nala close by. He went and the wonder of wonders, he found out the mare. He thought that this fakir was not an ordinary man, but an awliya, a great saint. He returned to the fakir with the mare. The chilim was ready for being smoked, but 2 things were wanting. Number 1, fire to light the pipe, and number 2, water to wet the chapi, the piece of cloth through which the smoke is drawn up. The fakir took his prong and thrust it forcibly into the ground, and out came a live burning coal, which he put on the pipe. Then he dashed the satka on the ground, from whence water began to ooze. The chapi was wetted with that water, was then wrung out and wrapped round the pipe. Thus, everything being complete, the fakir smoked the chilim and then gave it also to Chand Patel. On seeing all this, Chand Patel was wonderstruck. He requested the fakir to come to his home and accept his hospitality. Next day, he went to the Patel's house and stayed there for some time. The Patel was a village officer of Dhup. His wife's brother's son was to be married and the bride was from Shirdi. So Patil made preparations to start for Shirdi for the marriage. The fakir also accompanied the marriage party. The marriage went off without any hitch. The party returned to Dub, except the fakir alone stayed in Shirdi and remained there forever. How the fakir got the name Sai. When the marriage party came to Shirdi, it alighted at the foot of a banyan tree in Bhagat Mahasapati's field near Khandoba's temple. The carts were loosened in the open courtyard of Khandoba's temple. The carts were loosened in the open courtyard of Khandoba's temple, and the members of the party descended one by one, and the fakir also got down. Bhagat Mahasapati saw the young fakir getting down and accosted him, Ya Sai, welcome Sai. Others also addressed him as Sai, and thenceforth he became known as Sai Baba. Contact with other saints. Sai Baba began to stay in a deserted masjid. Masjid means mosque. One saint named Devidas was living in Shirdi many years before Baba came there. Baba liked his company. He stayed with him in the Maruti temple in the Chavdi and sometime lived alone. Then came another saint by the name Janki Das. Baba spent most of his time in talking with him, or Janki Das went to Baba's residence. So also one Vaishya householder saint from Puntambe by the name Gangagir always frequented Shirdi. When he first saw Shirdi Sai Baba carrying pitchers of water in both hands for watering the garden, he was amazed and said openly, "Blessed is Shirdi that it got this precious jewel. This man is carrying water today, but he is not an ordinary fellow. As this land, Shirdi, was lucky and meritorious, it secured this jewel." So also one famous saint by the name Anandanath of Yavala, Mat means monastery, a disciple of Akalkot Maharaj, came to Shirdi with some Shirdi people. When he saw Sai Baba, he said, "This is a precious diamond in reality. Though he looks like an ordinary man, he is not a eager, ordinary stone, but a diamond. You will realize this in the near future." Saying this, he returned to Yavala. This was said while Sai Baba was a youngster. Baba's dress and daily routine. In his young days, Sai Baba grew hair on his head, never had his head shaved. He dressed like an athlete. When he went to Rahata, 3 miles from Shirdi, he brought with him small plants of marigold, jay and jui, and after cleaning, he planted and watered them. A devotee by name Vaman Tatya supplied him daily with 2 earthen pitchers. With these, Baba himself used to water the plants. He drew water from the well and carried the pitchers on his shoulders. In the evening, the pitchers were kept at the foot of the neem tree. As soon as they were placed there, they were broken, as they were made of raw earth and not baked. Next day, Tatya supplied 2 fresh pitchers. This course went on for 3 years, and with Sai Baba's toil and labor, there grew a flower garden. On this site at present stands the big mansion, Samadhi Mandir of Baba, which is now frequented and used by so many devotees. The story of Paduka's footprints under the neem tree. A devotee of Akalkot Maharaj by the name Bhai Krishnaji Alibkar worshipped the fort of Akalkot Maharaj. He once thought of going to Akalkot, which is in Sholapur district, taking the darshan of the Padukas, footprints of the Maharaj, and offering his sincere worship there. But before he could go there, he got a vision in his dream. Akalkot Maharaj appeared in the vision and said to him, "Now Shirdi is my resting place. Go there and offer your worship." So Bhai changed his plan and came to Shirdi, worshipped Baba, stayed there for 6 months and was happy. As a reminiscence of this vision, etc., he prepared the Padukas and installed them on an auspicious day of the Shravan Shaka 1834, which is 1912 AD, under the neem tree with due ceremonies and formalities, conducted by Dada Kelkar and Upasni. Once one Dikshit Brahman was appointed for worship and the management was entrusted to devotee Sagun. Jai Sai Ram.
तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् ॐ तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात् भूर्भुवस्सुवः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यम् भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो नः प्रचोदयात्
Complete version of this story. Mr. B.V. Deo, retired Mamlatdar of Thana and a great devotee of Sai Baba, inquired about this matter with Sagun Meru Naik and Govind Kamlakar Dikshit and has published a full version of the Padukas in Sai Leela, Volume 11, Number 1, page 25. It runs as follows. In 1834 Shaka, which is 1912 AD, one Dr. Ramarao Kothare of Bombay came to Shirdi for Baba's darshan. His compounder and his friend Bhai Krishnaji Alibagkar accompanied him. The compounder and Bhai became intimate with Sagun Meru Naik and G.K. Dikshit. While discussing things, these persons thought that there must be some memorial of the fact of Sai Baba's first coming to Shirdi and sitting under the holy neem tree. They thought of installing Baba's padukas there and were going to make them of some rough stones. Then Bhai's friend, the compounder, suggested that if this matter be made known to his master, Dr. Ramarao Kothare, who would prepare nice padukas for this purpose. All liked the proposal and Dr. Kothare was informed of it. He came to Shirdi and drew a plan of the padukas. He went to Pasni Maharaj in Khandoba's temple and showed him his plan. The latter made many improvements, drew lotuses, flowers, conch, disc, man, etc. and suggested that the following shloka, verse regarding neem tree's greatness and Baba's yogi powers be inscribed. The verse was as follows. Sadanimba vrikshasya mola divasat sudhasravinam tektamapya priyam tam tarum kalpa vrikshadikam sadayam tam namamishwaram sadgurum sainatham, which means I bowed to the Lord Sainath, who by his constant stay at the foot of the neem tree made it, which though bitter and unpleasant, was yet oozing nectar. The oozing of this tree is called Amrit, means nectar, on account of its healing properties, better than the Kalpavriksha, the wish-fulfilling tree. Upasni's suggestions were accepted and carried out. The padukas were made in Bombay and sent to Shirdi with the compounder. Baba said that they should be installed on the Purnima, the 15th of Shravan. On that day at 11 a.m., G.K. Dikshit brought them on his head from Khandoba's temple to the Dwarka Masjid in procession. Baba touched the padukas, saying that these are the feet of the Lord, and asked the people to install them under the foot of the neem tree. A day before, one Parsi devotee of Bombay named Pasta Sheikh sent rupees 25 by money order. Baba gave this sum for the installation of the padukas. The total expense of installation came up to rupees 100, out of which rupees 75 were collected by subscriptions. For the first 5 years, G.K. Dikshit worshipped the padukas daily, and then this was done by Lakshman Kacheshwar Jakri. In the first 5 years, Dr. Kothare sent rupees 2 per month for lighting, and he also sent the railing round the padukas. The expense of bringing the railing from the station to Shirdi, rupees 7 to 8, presently rupees 7.5, and roofing was paid by Sagun Meru Naik. Now Jakri Nana Pujari does the worship and Sagun Meru Naik offers the Naivedya and lights the evening lamps. Bhai Krishnaji was originally a devotee of Akalkot Maharaj. He had come to Shirdi at the installation of the Padukas in Shaka 1834 on his way to Akalkot. He wanted to go to Akalkot after taking the darshan of Baba. He asked Baba's permission for this. Baba said, "Oh, what is there in Akalkot? Why do you go there? The incumbent Maharaj of that place is here, myself." Hearing this, Bhai did not go to Akalkot. He came to Shirdi off and on after the installation of the Padukas. Mr. B.V. Dev concluded that Hemadpant did not know these details. Had he known them, he would not have failed to depict them in his Satcharitra. Wrestling bout with Modin Tamboli and change in life. To return to other stories of Baba, there was a wrestler in Shirdi by name Modin Tamboli. Baba and he did not agree on some items and both had a fight. In this, Baba was defeated. Thenceforth, Baba changed his dress and mode of living. He donned kafni, wore a langot, which is a waistband, and covered his head with a piece of cloth. He took a piece of sackcloth for his seat, sackcloth for his bed, and was content with wearing torn and worn-out rags. He always said that poverty is better than kinship, far better than lordship. The Lord is always brother, befriender of the poor. Gangagir was also very fond of wrestling. Whilst he was wrestling, a similar feeling of dispassion came over him. And at the proper time, he heard the voice of an adept saying that he should wear out his body playing with God. So he too gave up samsara and turned towards God realization. He established a mutt on the bank of the river near Puntambe and lived there with disciples. Sai Baba did not mix and speak with the people. He only gave answers when he was questioned. By day, he always sat under the neem tree, sometimes under the shade of a branch of a babul tree near the stream at the outskirts of the village. In the afternoon, he used to walk at random and go at times to Nimgaon. Then there he frequented the house of Bala Sahib Dengle, and Baba loved Mr. Bala Sahib. His younger brother named Nana Sahib had no son, though he married a second wife. Bala Sahib sent Nana Sahib for taking darshan of Sai Baba, and after some time, with his grace, Nana Sahib got a son. From that time onwards, people began to come in numbers to see Sai Baba, and his fame began to spread and reach Ahmednagar. From thence, Nana Sahib Chandorkar and Keshav Chidambar and many others began to come to Shirdi. Baba was surrounded by his devotees during the day and slept at night in an old and dilapidated masjid. Baba's paraphernalia at that time consisted of a chilim, tobacco, a thumb roll, which is a tin pot, long flowing kafni, a piece of cloth round his head, and a satka, which is a short stick, while he always kept with him. The piece of white cloth on his head was twisted like matted hair and flowed down from the left ear on the back. This was not washed for weeks. He wore no shoes, no sandals. A piece of sackcloth was his seat for most of the day. He wore a kapin, waistcloth band, and for warding off cold, he always sat in front of a duni, sacred fire, facing south with his left hand resting on the wooden railing. In that duni, he offered as oblation egoism, desires, and all thoughts, and always uttered, Allah Malik. God is the sole owner. The masjid in which he sat was only of 2-room dimensions, where all devotees came and saw him. After 1912 AD, there was a change. The old masjid was repaired and pavement was constructed. Before Baba came to live in this masjid, he lived for a long time in a place, Sathya, where with gungur, which is small bells on his legs, Baba danced beautifully, sang with tender love. Turning water into oil. Sai Baba was very fond of lights. He used to borrow oil from shopkeepers and keep lamps burning the whole night in the masjid and temple. This went on for some time. The Baniyas, their shopkeepers, who supplied oil gratis, once met together and decided not to give him oil. When, as usual, Baba went to ask for oil, they all gave him a distinct no. Unperturbed, Baba returned to the masjid and kept the dry wicks in the lamps. The Baniyas were watching him with curiosity. Baba took the drum roll, the tin pot, which contained very little, a few drops of oil, but put water into it and drank it and forced it full in the container. After consecrating the tin pot in this way, he again took water in the tin pot and filled all the lamps with it and lighted them. To the surprise and dismay of the watching Baniyas, the lamps began to burn and kept burning the whole night. The Baniyas repented and apologized. Baba forgave them and asked them to be more truthful in future. The pseudo-guru Jawar Ali. 5 years after the wrestling bout mentioned above, one fakir from Ahmednagar by name Jawar Ali came to Rahata with his disciples and stayed in Bakhal, which is a spacious room, near Veerbhadra temple. The fakir was learned, could repeat the whole Quran and had a sweet tongue. Many religious and devout people of the village came to him and began to respect him. With the help of the people, he started to build an Idgah, a wall before which Mohammedans pray on Idgah day, near the Veerbhadra temple. There was some quarrel about this affair, on account of which Jawar Ali had to leave Rahata. Then he came to Shirdi and lived in the masjid with Baba. People were captured by his sweet talk and he began to call Baba his disciple. Baba did not object and consented to be his chela. Then both Guru and Chela decided to return to Rahata and live there. The Guru, the teacher, never knew his disciple's worth, but the disciple knew the defects of the Guru. Still, he never disrespected him. Observing carefully his duties, he even served the master in various ways. They used to come to Shirdi off and on, but their mainstay was in Rahata. The loving devotees of Baba in Shirdi did not like that. Baba would stay away from them in Rahata. So they went to deputation to bring Baba back to Shirdi. When they met Baba near the Idgah and told the purpose for which they came, Baba said to them that the fakir was an ill-tempered fellow, he would not leave him, and that they should better return to Shirdi without him before the fakir returned. While they were thus talking, the fakir turned up and was very angry with them for trying to take away his disciple. There was some discussion and altercation, and it was finally decided that both the Guru and Chela should return to Shirdi. And so they returned and lived in Shirdi. But after a few days, the Guru was tested by Devidas and he was found wanting. 12 years before Baba arrived in Shirdi with the marriage party, this Devidas, aged about 10 or 11, came to Shirdi and lived in the Maruti temple. Devidas had fine features and brilliant eyes, and he was dispassion incarnate and Agnani. Many persons, namely Tatya Kote, Kashinath, and others regarded him as their Guru. They brought Jawhar Ali in his presence, and in the discussion that followed, Jawhar was worsted and fled from Shirdi. He went and stayed in Bijapur and returned after many years to Shirdi and prostrated himself before Sai Baba. The delusion that he was Guru and Sai Baba his Chela was cleared away, and as he repented, Sai Baba treated him with respect. In this case, Sai Baba showed by actual conduct how one should get rid of egoism and do the duties of a disciple to attain the highest end, means self-realization. This story is told here according to the version given by Malsapati, who was a great devotee of Baba. In the next chapter will be described Ram Navami festival, which is the festival celebrated in the honor of Lord Rama, the masjid, its former condition and later improvement, etc. Bow to Shri Sai, peace be to all.
Shri Satchidananda Sadguru Sainath Maharaj ki jai. Aarati Sai Baba Saukya Datar Jeeva Charana Rajatani Yavadasa Visava Bhakta Visava Aarati Sai Baba Tumche Nam Dhyata Hari Samskriti Vyata Agadha Tava Karani Margada Visiyanada Kavisiyanada Aarati Sai Baba Kaliyogi Avatara Saguna Para Brahma Sachara Avatirna Zala Sri Swami Datta Digambara Datta Digambara Aarati Sai Baba Saukya Datar Jeeva Charana Rajatani Javadasa Visava Bhakta Visava Aarati Sai Baba Shirdi Maze Pandharpura Sai Baba Ramavara Baba Ramavara Sai Baba Ramavara Shuddha Bhakti Chandra Baba Baba Kundalika Zaga Kundalika Zaga Baba Kundalika Zaga Kali Lotangana Vandina Charana Gaurani Pahina Rupa Tujhe Preme Alindina Ananda Pujina Bhave Avalina Mahi Nama Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Tvameva Bandhu Sakha Tvameva Tvameva Vidya Dravinam Tvameva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Ayena Vacha Manasindriyeva Bhutyatmana Va Prakriti Svabhava Karomi Adyat Sakalam Parasmai Narayanaiti Samarpayami Achyutam Keshavam Ramanarayanam Krishna Damodaram Vasudevam Hari Sridharam Madhavam Gopika Vallavam Janaki Nayakam Ramachandram Bhaje Hare Ram Hare Ram 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Shri Gurudeva Datta Ananta Tulate Kasere Stavave Ananta Tulate Kasere
नमस्कार साष्टांग श्री साईनाथा ऐसा येई बा साई दिगंबरा अक्षय रूप अवतारा सर्व हि व्यापक तू श्रुति सारा अनुसयात कुमारा बाबा येई बा सदा सत्स्वरूपं चिदानन्दकन्दं जगत्सम्भवस्थान संहार हेतुं स्वभक्तेच्छया मानुषं दर्शयन्तं नमामीश्वरं सद्गुरुं साईनाथम् रुसो मम प्रियाम्बिका मजबरी पिता हि रुसो रुसो मम प्रियाङ्गना प्रियसुता मजाहि रुसो रुसो भगिनी बन्धुहि श्वशुर सासुबाई रुसो ददत्त गुरु साई माम जबरी कदीहि रुसो गुणाची घृणा नसो न च स्पृहा कशाची असो सदैव हृदयी वसो मनसि ध्यानि साई वसो मणि प्रणय वो रसो निखिल दृश्य बाबा निसो नदत्त गुरु साई मां उपरिया चनेला रुसो हरि ओम यज्ञेन यज्ञमयजन्त देवास्तानि धर्माणि प्रथमान्यासन् तेहनाकं महिमानः सचन्त यत्र पूर्वे साध्या सन्ति देवाः ॐ राजाधिराजाय प्रसन्न साईने नमो वयं वै श्रवणाय कुर्महे समे कामान् कामकामाय मह्यं कामेश्वरो वै श्रवणो ददातु कुबेराय वै श्रवणाय महाराजाय नमः श्रीनारायण वासुदेवाय सच्चिदानन्द सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज की जय करचरण कृतं वा कायजं कर्मजं वा शरणनयनजं वा मानसं वा परायं विहितमविहितं वा सर्वमेतत्क्षमस्व जय जय करुणाब्धे श्री प्रभो साईनाथ श्री सच्चिदानंद सद्गुरु साईनाथ महाराज